over the last 8 years, government has been contributing to the escalation in the cost of housing in the country. And again, Mr. President, I want to make reference to the lots that were sold in the development above Pines of Karachi and nestled between Long Mountain and Beverly Hills. A development where the lands were owned by the HAJ. And Mr. President, those lots were sold for between $25 and $30 million. Just the lot alone. You don't start talk about the construction of the house. And Mr. President, I find it very ironic that the housing portfolio falls under the responsibility of no other than the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister, who is responsible for HAJ and is designated by law as corporation sole, would have known about the sale of these lots for $25 million to citizens. And now, lots alone. Lots alone. And now I heard the Prime Minister, because I listen to him, and I read things that he says. I heard the Prime Minister yesterday speaking at a function for NHT and saying that the NHT is now going to focus on affordable housing over the next couple of years. The question is, who or why was the focus on the higher end of the housing market over the past 8 years by this government? Misdirection in terms of public policy. The National Housing Trust was built primarily to provide affordable housing for our citizens. And we say, hail the man, Michael Joshua Manley, for establishing the National Housing Trust in 1976. And that institution has been a beacon in the Jamaican society. And almost 300,000 houses over the past almost 50 years in the existence of the NHT. Significant. But what we have seen, though, over the past 8 years, is a sort of reduction in terms of the build-out of the National Housing Trust in terms of affordable housing. Because based on data, for example, last year, the NHT never built 2,000 houses. Never built 2,000 houses. And that is why I was amazed at the buncombe that was spoken by Senator Charles Sinclair in his last presentation to say that the administration has built 70,000 houses since they are in power. It's just as if he's taking out something out of a hat and just come and repeat nonsense in the honorable chamber. 70,000 houses, absolute craziness. The government has not built 70,000 houses since it has been in power in 2016. And Mr. President, I take note that the Prime Minister has been speaking about social housing. And I commend any effort to provide social housing for the most vulnerable and marginalized within our society. But when I look at the data carefully as the opposition spokesperson on housing and sustainable living, and see that the Prime Minister has built 300 social houses over a 9-year period. 300 over 9. Damien, help me out, please, quickly. That is probably about 33 or so houses per year. And my mathematical calculation based on the information provided to us by the Prime Minister publicly, that there is a demand for 8,000 social houses. I am using his own data. 8,000 social houses. He has built 300 in 9 years. It means mathematically that it will take 240 years.
Point of order, sir.
Point of order. Well, let me hear what this is.
The new social housing program came into being in 2018. So when the senator professes to tell the Senate that the program has been around for 9 years, he's in fact misleading the Parliament of Jamaica. I'd advise him to comport himself accordingly and correct that misinformation. Thank you, sir.
I see.
But hold on a little bit. Senator Brown, you hear me say it's a valid point of order. Didn't I ignore it?
No, I know you're not saying it.
Senator.
I'm supporting you on that now.
Senator Morris, continue, please. Thank you for that, Senator
Mr. President,
Brown.
I empathize with Senator Fitzhenry because I know it touched him very much, you know. But the truth is, Mr. President, if it is 8 years or if it is 9 years, it is still going to make the matters worse. 240 years it will take at the rate at which we are going, the rate at which the Prime Minister is going. 240 years for the demand for houses, social houses to be filled. 240 years. And I want to say that the Prime Minister, who is beating his chest about these social houses, and based on the data in terms of the number of houses being built at the NHT, the Prime Minister has been a colossal failure when it comes on to housing and as Minister of Housing. Colossal failure. Check the data. Check the data. Check the data. Mr. President, I want to say that the People's National Party has been at the forefront of driving the housing development in our country. And the time has come for the real housing transformation to take place. And we have signaled through the leader of the opposition that upon taking over governance of the country, we are going to immediately end the annual extraction of $11.4 billion from the NHT to give budgetary support to make sure that the NHT have sufficient funds to contribute to the housing development in our country. We want that $11.4 billion to go back into the institution to make sure that it carry out its mandate. That should have ended in 2017. And the government at the time, whilst they were in opposition, said that they were going to It was a cruel act. And they even had a surrogate to take it to court. And they have extended it for 9 more years because it goes up until 2026. Mr. President, we believe that we have to capitalize the NHT to make sure that it carries out its original mandate to build houses for the people. Build houses for the people. And Mr. President, we are going to be embarking on major legislative review to ensure that we use all the possible tools to provide affordable housing for our people. Because the data is suggesting that we are going to need about 80,000 houses to deal with the demand in the market. And the significant portion of that demand is for low to middle income housing. And we are going to be putting forward, Mr. President, a number of initiatives that will benefit our young people, persons with disabilities, and even our senior citizens. Because, for example, Mr. President, we are going to be partnering with the church community in building retirement homes for our senior citizens because the churches own significant parcels of land. And we want to partner with them in order to build out affordable housing for our senior citizens. And Mr. President, when we roll out our housing plan, our young people will understand and realize why it is that the People's National Party is a housing government. Because we are going to make sure that a percentage of all those housing developments that we will embark on, our seniors, our young people stand to benefit, whether it be through the rent-to-buy initiative or just making sure that a percentage of those houses are reserved for young people who are contributors to the National Housing Trust. Mr. President, the leader of the opposition spoke about an initiative that we believe is going to contribute significantly to the transformation of housing development in our country. The program for the orderly renewal and transformation of infrastructure in all areas, what we dub the Portia Initiative, to make sure that we regentrify communities that have fallen apart over the past couple of years. We are going to embark on completing those Operation Pride schemes that have been abandoned by this administration. And I have toured, Mr. President, a number of Operation Pride developments. And all the people want is for the government to come and assist them in making sure that where they live is habitable and accessible. And Mr. President, I make no apology in terms of my endorsement and embracement of Operation Pride, because Pines of Karachi is an Operation Pride development. Long Mountain is an Operation Pride development. Melrose News is an Operation Pride development. Bel Air is an Operation Pride development. Norwich Heights in Portland is an Operation Pride development. And you just need to go and talk to the people about what Don't talk about corruption. You don't talk about corruption. Mr. President, one of the things, Mr. President, one of the things that we are going to have to do in order to assist in driving down the cost of houses is to ensure that we build a skill bank with all those tradesmen across the country, those masons, those carpenters, those steelmen, and so forth, and make sure that they are upgraded in terms of their training with the HEART, NSTA, and to make sure that these individuals are able to benefit from the housing transformation that will be taking place under our leadership. Because you have a situation, Mr. President, where people build on their own land, and they want to have individuals from their community who can assist in the construction of their houses. But these individuals have to be trained, these individuals have to be skilled, and we want to forge a partnership with them to make sure that they assist in the build-out of affordable houses for citizens in their communities. We're gonna be giving you a fulsome outline of what our housing plans are, but what I'm giving you is a little prips, as they would say.
Thank you very much. Your time is, Speaker's time is completed. Senator Hill.
Given that we want to extend the courtesy to the Speaker to the complete, we ask that we extend sufficient time to Senator Morris to finish his
Thank you very much.
submission.
Thank you, Senator Hill. The question is that Senator Morris will permit the time sufficient to complete his presentation. In favor? Thank you, Senator Morris. Please continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I will tell you that half of that time has been taken up by the government, who has been interrupting my presentation. And I can say how effective the presentation is because I have the government on their toes. That is what the opposition is supposed to do. Mr. President, we are committed to ensuring that when we assume governance of the country, we provide affordable housing for all citizens. And we are going to ensure that at minimum, the contributors from the NHT, when they get their benefit, it would be aligned to at least the cost of a one-bedroom in the housing market. At least, because it is very difficult for a lot of the contributors to find the additional money outside to really purchase their units. And that is something that we are prepared to go implement upon assuming government. So, Mr. President, we are very much the housing government, and the evidence have been there over the years, because if you look at Portmore and what it is now, you will understand. When you look at Hope Pastures and Mona and Arborview, you will understand what a People's National Party government is about. And then you traverse the parishes across the island, and every housing scheme that you see there must be attributed. And I must say Cornwall Court in Montego Bay as well. And farmers all over attributed to the work of various People's National Party administration. So, Mr. President, the real housing transformation will soon take place. And I say to the Jamaican citizens, don't worry, help is on the way because time comes. Time comes. Mr. President, I could not complete my presentation without referencing our senior citizens. Without referencing our senior citizens. Our senior citizens, Mr. President, constitute 13.2% of our population. And most recently, this honorable chamber approved a motion that I had tabled, and the matter is going to be considered by a select committee, which we will be meeting very shortly to start the work. But yes, I am a member of the committee. I want to say that whatever happens at that committee, the opposition is committed to enacting legislation to protect the rights and dignity of our senior citizens when we take over government in the not too distant future. It is a commitment that we are making to our senior citizens. It originated with me tabling the motion in 2021 and the Senate approving in 2024. And we are going to follow through with our commitment where that is concerned. Mr. President, our population of persons with disabilities have been experiencing a number of challenges, and I have spoken about them consistently in this chamber. And one of them is the high levels of unemployment among the population of persons with disabilities. We have done research, and it's not just me alone, but we have done research that shows upwards of 90% of the population of persons with disabilities in Jamaica unemployed. And that is why I always, whenever I hear about low unemployment in Jamaica, I say to myself, what about the population of persons with disabilities? Aren't they considered in these calculations? Because if they are, I am certain that the data would reflect a higher unemployment rate, because 90% upwards of the population of persons with disabilities are not being reflected in the labor market. And I want to say to members of the community of persons with disabilities that the Mark Golding-led administration, Mark Golding, the son of Sir John Golding, will ensure that progressive programs and policies are put in place to ensure that they are reflected in the labor market. Help is on the way. Mr. President, I know that Senator Dana Morris has just taken over the portfolio in terms of education. And I have some hope there, because she has connections with the community of persons with disabilities. And I know, and I'm looking forward to some programs and policies being implemented to ensure that persons with disabilities are brought in the mainstream of the education system. But I say, Senator Morris Dixon, you have a short window to operate, because in the not too distant future, we are going to ensure that we implement the corrective measures to ensure that persons with disabilities are brought in the mainstream of our education system. It cannot be that our Constitution make primary education a right, yet still a significant block of our schools at the primary level and at the secondary level, but I am talking about the right to primary education, that a significant block of our primary schools are not equipped to deal with our children with disabilities. And I must say that the Disabilities Rights Tribunal is in place, which is a creature of law that has been formulated by the People's National Party administration. And the government must be aware of this institution and that it is exposed, because if corrective measures are not put in place, you're going to find a situation where a parent turns up at a school with a child with a disability at the primary level and is turned back, and then the Disability Rights Tribunal will have to intervene. And I am pretty sure that our spokesperson on education, when he becomes the Minister of Education, will deal with that particular matter. So, Mr. President, we are committed to transforming the Jamaican society. And we are committed to transforming the Jamaican society by ensuring that we stand with the institution that has been established to fight against corruption in the Jamaican society, the Integrity Commission. We are committed to ensuring that we lead the housing transformation by making sure that we provide affordable houses for our people. It is not about talk, it is about substance, and we are going to be rolling out a suite of measures to provide affordable housing for our people. We are going to be making sure, Mr. President, that we implement legislation to protect our senior citizens. And we are going to ensure that we put in place programs and policies to provide employment for our persons with disabilities and to make sure that they are included in the education system. And I say, Mr. President, let the transformation begin, because time comes, Mr. President. I thank you.